Lessons in Logic video 28, and this is our final video for the unit on categorical logic. We finished the unit on categorical logic, and in this video, just a very brief review. First of all, what methods do we have so far? We have actually one method using statement logic, but let's not get to that yet. What we have so far, actually, let's get to that almost immediately. What methods we have so far are first a method using categorical logic and statement logic, and that's the counterexample method. It works on some invalid arguments. What it does is it proves an argument is invalid if you're working with the specific form of the argument, but it doesn't prove validity. So in other words, you can use the counterexample method on bad arguments to show that they're bad, but you can't use it on good arguments to show that they're good, at least not very reliably. And also you have to have the specific form, which is to say an argument is valid or invalid depending on the way we're reasoning about things, not the things we're reasoning about. It depends on the structure of the argument or the form of the argument, the pattern of the argument. It depends on how the argument does reasoning, not the things the argument is reasoning about. But every argument has one very general pattern, which is premise, premise, conclusion. Well, depending on how many premises there are, premise, conclusion, or premise, premise, conclusion, or premise, 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 conclusion, or premise, 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 conclusion, and so on, as high as we need to go, depending on how many premises the argument has. So a valid argument has that very general form, premise, premise, conclusion, but it also has a specific form. The argument, all bovines are mammals, all cows are bovines, therefore all cows are mammals is a valid argument. It's not possible for the premises to be true and the conclusion false at the same time, because that argument has the pattern that makes it impossible for the premises to be true and the conclusion at the same time. And that pattern is all M are P, all S are M, so all S are P. But it also has the general pattern, premise, premise, conclusion. So the counterexample method will work very well to demonstrate an argument to be invalid if you get the specific pattern or the specific form of the argument. So far we have the counterexample method that we looked at in our intro unit for statement logic and for categorical logic. We'll get lots more methods for statement logic in the next unit. Now, here is my list of methods we have for our categorical logic unit. Lacking a better name, we have the method of immediate inferences. And this works on some inferences in categorical logic, some of the immediate ones. Immediate inferences are the ones with the arguments with just one premise. This method tests for validity and validity, as long as it's one of the inferences you can test. And which inferences are those? It's the ones that fit on the square of opposition, or in our nice list of valid forms, valid conversion, onversion, contraposition, and things like that. And invalid, obversion. Actually, let's see, obversion is always valid. There are two types of obversion that are, two types of conversion that are valid, two that are invalid, two types of contraposition that are valid, and two that are invalid, with some complications for that whole issue of existential import, about which I want to say precisely nothing whatsoever in this video. So then we have the nice Venn diagram method, which works for categorical syllogisms and sometimes for immediate inferences, and it tests for validity and invalidity. And then finally, we have our 6 rules method and our mood figure method, which work on categorical syllogisms and test for validity and validity. And now, although I've done this before, I think on at least 2 videos, now let's do it one more time. Let's test an argument for validity using those 3 methods that apply to syllogisms: the Venn diagram method, the 6 rules method, the mood figure method. And the first thing is always to put an argument into standard form using a good scheme of abbreviation. And when we're doing categorical logic, there are more specific rules for schemes of abbreviation. We have, or at least when we're doing categorical syllogisms, we have names for the 3 terms in the syllogism. The first term in the conclusion is the minor term. The second term in the conclusion is the major term. The term that tries to connect them, that appears once in each premise, is the middle term. And those are respectively S, P, and M. The conclusion here is all happy people are seeking wisdom. So happy people is our minor term. People who are seeking wisdom will be our major term, and the middle term is wise people. I'm thinking about what this argument is and where it came from. It's probably been in my notes for over a decade. All happy people are wisdom, all happy people have wisdom, all wise people are seeking wisdom, so all happy people are seeking wisdom. It feels like a Barbara syllogism. I don't know where I got this argument from. I was probably thinking of the character of Lactantius in Augustine's De Beata Vita on the Happy Life, though I'd want more time and more tea to think about whether this is an argument from Lactantius or just one that sort of vaguely channels him in one or two respects. In any case, the argument is all happy people have wisdom, all wise people are seeking wisdom, so all happy people are seeking wisdom. So the minor term is happy people, the major term is people who are seeking wisdom, and the middle term is wise people. And our first premise is the major premise. You have to put the major premise first when you put it into standard form. And the major premise is the one with the major term and the middle term. And that premise is all wise people are seeking wisdom, all MRP. The next premise, the premise to write second, is the minor premise being the one with the minor term and the middle term, and that would be all happy people are wise people. All S or M. The conclusion is all SRP, all happy people are people who are seeking wisdom. I just copied this from an earlier document, but it turns out it fits. The mood is indeed AAA. The figure is indeed figure 1. It's AAA. These are 3 A form propositions. They're all universal affirmative. The figure is 1, meaning the middle term occurs first in the first premise, it's second in the second premise, and that means it's one of our valid figures. Now this, I'm going to have to do something about this. This isn't the right way to set up a Venn diagram. So we can already tell the argument's valid. It's one of our valid mood figure combinations, but we're going to go ahead and write in the word valid. But let's do a Venn diagram to double confirm this and for the practice of it. But this Venn diagram is not set up properly. And now our Venn diagram is set up properly. So all MRP, form of our argument is all MRP, all S or M, so all S or P. So to Venn diagram that, we observe that all M's are P's. There's nothing that's an M that's not a P. All S's are M's. There's nothing that's an S that's not an M. And then we ask, have we demonstrated thereby that all S's are P's, that there's nothing that's an S that's not a P? Well, if it were demonstrated, then these two regions would be shaded. And what do you know? They actually are. Everything that's an S is a P. There's no S that's not a P. So this argument is valid. And now we, this is how I know how to use this technology. If I were writing this on paper, things would be different. I could use a pencil. But now I copy and paste from Microsoft Paint the correct Venn diagram. Argument's valid. That's good. But let's confirm with, let's double, triple confirm with our 6 rules method. Let's copy and paste the argument here so we remember what we're looking at. Is it a standard form syllogism containing 3 terms? Yes. Is the middle term distributed in at least one premise? Yes, the middle term is distributed in the first premise because the first premise says something about every M. All M or P. An A form proposition distributes its first term, M is the first term, so the middle term is indeed distributed in the first premise. The middle term is distributed in at least one premise. It's a standard form. Let's go to number 3. A term distributed in the conclusion must be distributed in the premises, and the S term, but not the P term, is distributed in the conclusion and also in its own premise. S is distributed in both its premise and the conclusion. The minor term is distributed in the conclusion and also in the minor premise. We're good, no problem. Number 4. Do you have 2 negative premises? No, both premises are affirmative. If a premise is negative, the conclusion must be negative. No premise is negative, so no problem. The premises are both universal. The conclusion must also be universal, no problem. So this is a good argument, and it is indeed a Barber syllogism, and that's it. We're done. We're done with categorical logic. So thanks for watching, and we'll do statement logic next time. Woohoo!